Shemad in Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. The blessing of the Sabbath. Barak Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Asherah, Ethelanawa, Hashabath, Bashalawam, Thowada, Aman. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the Sabbath and peace. Thank you, so be it. Taha'ayim Ma'ad Asherayim Kad, Psalms 121. Anya, Ryan, Ayanyam Ya, Oh, Haryam, Ma'ayan, Yabu'a, I Arya, Yabu'a, Mayahawa, Shai Shamayam, Wa'avatiza, La'a, Yanathan, Lamawat, Regalia, Yala'a, Yanawum, Shashamarka, Hana, La'a, Yanawum, Wala'a, Yayasan, Shashuma, Yasrela, Yahweh, Shamaya, Yahweh, Tazaya, I, Ya, Yam Ya, Yawamam, Hashamash, La'a, Hakaya, Wayara, La'a, Balayala, Yahweh, Yashamaria, Makal, Ra, Yashamar, Napasha, Yahweh, Yashamar, Hawalakia, Wabawaya, Ma'aita, Wa'ai, Ayuam, Bahasham, Yahweh, for water, Amen.
Psalm 121, a song of degrees. I will lift up mine eyes into the hills from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharala, hear, O Israel. Shema Yasharala, Yahweh, Allah, Yahweh, Shema Yasharala, Yahweh, Allah, Yahweh, Shema Yasharala, Yahweh, Allah, Yahweh,
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, Israel, our God, the Lord.
Amen. Stop playing our Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Chiyah, Shemkan, Yahweh, Malakukan, Saba'ah, Ratasawinkan, Haya, Aishta, Ba'arataza, Ka, Bashamayim, Batalanawan, Lakam, Yowam, Zah, Wasalakanawan, Kababathanawan, Kasalakanawan, Kababathanawan, Wala'ah, Hadiyanawan, O, Nasayawan, Abo, Hawashinawan, Maran, Kaya, Lakah, Hamalakwa, Waha'ala, Wahata Pa'arath, La'aywalam, Aman.
Matthew 6:9. After this manner therefore pray ye, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and give us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Amen. Ha'ash Ramatazawa, the Ten Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Lakah, Alahayim, Karyam, Al-Piyah. La'ah, Thaisha, Laka, Kaso, Wala'a, Ta'ibadam, La'a, Alakwaka, Shama, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Ath, Hayawam, Hashabath, Lakodashwa, Kabad, Abiaka, Wa'amaka, La'a, Saratazak, La'a, Sana'a, La'a, Sagana, La'a, Zaina, Shakur, La'a, Zakama, Ko, Ashara, Lara'ayaka, Aman.
Deuteronomy 5:7. Thou shalt have none other gods before me. Thou shalt not make any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them or serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. This is the iniquity of the fathers upon the children of the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and show mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord our Lord will give us and take his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day, sanctify it, as the Lord thy God commanded thee. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy maidservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy ox, nor thy ass, any of thy cattle, nor thy stranger within thy gate, that thy maidservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. And remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt. And the Lord thy God brought thee out thence with a mighty hand by a stretched out arm. Therefore the Lord thy God commanded thee to keep the Sabbath day. Honor thy father and mother, as the Lord thy God commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God hath given thee. Thou shalt not kill, neither shalt thou commit adultery, neither shalt thou steal, neither shalt thou bear false witness against thy neighbor, neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's house, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his who is ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's.
Aman. Shall be seated. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ashran, Atalanawa, Parya Hagapan, Dwada Aman, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath, Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. A mob up Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Opening prayers. Barakatha Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakuam, Abiyar, Wanara'ah, Aliyawan. Malak, Sho, Shemayim, Wa'aratazah, Wakol, Debarium, Hayayim. Wagum, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Adawanawa, Ahabnawa, Hapalah, Yawaitazah, Yahweh Shai. Zakaranawa, Yahweh, Baratazawan, Aimka, Yasha'ala. Izarnawa, Bana, Wa'asap, Yasha'ala, O, Nanawa, Yum, Aitha, Kayawumyum, Makwadam. Baba Kwasha, Shalat, Mayaka'ala, Wahatazwadat, Alahayam, La, Magunnawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Alnawa, Ba'akwar, Shalat, Haroka, Sho, Yahweh Shai, Lanawa, Lalamanawa, Rabiam, Hakama, Tabawana, Wada'ith, Shaw, the Baraka, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, so Wada, some Yad, Wa'iwalam, Amun. English translation. Blessed are ye, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, young people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever. So be it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the law. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Lethalanawa, Hathawara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us light to see. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Lethalanawa, O war, Lara Awat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Koran, Ha'ayol, Lakorah, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Hasheman, Zayath, Lamashak, Yasha Allah. Yeshabwa. Now we Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, it's dying out. So, oh yeah, all right. Shalom, Bakwar, Tawab, also Ashar Shabbat. Good morning and happy Sabbath. Peace and blessings to the brothers and sisters throughout the nation of Israel. Those who are watching on the live stream, those who are listening in on the teleconference, to the brothers and sisters that's here in the school here at HYK. Happy Sabbath, Ashar Shabbat. This is the Congregation of Israel, located here in Germantown Avenue in Philadelphia, PA. We teach the Most High's will, which is his laws, his statutes, and commandments found throughout the Old Testament, the New Testament, also the hidden book known as the Apocrypha, of part of the original King James 1611 Bible, right? This is the Sabbath day where we come together, take a day away from our work week, our times, our pleasures, our endeavors to come before the Lord and worship, send up prayers, get some understanding, dive into the Bible, and then Lord's will be able also to do good works, fellowshipping, teaching, what have you, in the spirit of Yahweh, so that we can endure until the last days before and do it through the last days until the time of Yahweh comes and the redeeming of the nation of Israel. So it's a beautiful thing that we have this opportunity to recharge, re-energize our spirits, feed the mind with wisdom and understanding when we come together. Putting this out, it's also the days of preparation for the Passover. Unlike any of the other high holy days where it's just a feast time period, this is a festive period, but it's also a cleansing period. So when we physically remove the leavening out of our houses this weekend, possibly is the point where you're going to start going through your households and identifying those things that have leaven in them, remove them out starting on the first day. Most likely try to do it before the first day comes in, but to get them out of your household. And then as you go into the New Testament, it talks about removing leaven out of yourselves, which is the spirit of hypocrisy that the Pharisees and the Sadducees were also doing at that time, which that spirit trickles into today's time, because there's certain things that we see in the scriptures, but we don't do them. We advocate for them, but we don't exercise those things ourselves. So Christ wants us to remove that out of our spirit as well during this time period. During the week of the unleavened bread, during that feast period, is a time for us to reflect on that. So as we're eating unleavened bread and we're partaking in these meals, but it's also a time to reflect on the spiritual aspect, to remove that type of hypocrisy or any leaven that has creeped in over the period of the last year that now has caused you to either drift or stray away, right? That's this time period as well. So get together, start preparing so that when you go into the week, you can have everything planned out. Preparation is key when you're dealing with the Most High and you're dealing with the scriptures or in life, right? If you don't properly plan, right, your enterprise or your endeavors may fail because you didn't consider everything or consider the matter. So something that we want to do going into this feast week. It's the first high holy day of the year. So we want to start off with a good spirit and a good slate. All right. So we're going to go into this morning for the Sabbath service. We're going to go into the Apocrypha. We're going to be in First Edras chapters 2 and 3, where we're going to go into two different things. We're going to go into a bit of history where our ancestors was allowed to go back during the times of the Persians and the Medes captivity to rebuild the city of Jerusalem, to repair and repair the temple, and to get certain things back in order in keeping our traditions pertaining to the law, statutes, and commandments. And then, you get into the second half of the service where there's somewhat of a competition of wisdom, challenge, so to speak. You had that happen during different periods and times where, unlike today, where your best baseball, basketball player, or whoever best looking actor was the ones that's lifted up, highest paid, what have you. Back then, it was those who was wise, right? Those who can, exhume that they were the wisest ones, or they had skills to be able to judge matters in certain affairs. They were elevated and promoted into the top ranks in certain empires. So this is where that challenge is going to take its course too in the second half of the service. So we're going to go into First Edras, the second chapter, starting off there, and then we'll proceed further. So as always, all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High in Christ for the knowledge, wisdom. Pray that they allow us to tap into that spirit to bring out this truth today during the service. All right. So First Edras chapter 2 and verse 1. And I'm going to try to see if I can do this here, because sometimes I'm looking down. I was seeing Elder Zaquan. He kind of does it. I don't know if he does it off his tablet, but he's has his face always there. So I'm going to try to see if I could do this online and read from King James Version here. So it says, First Edras chapter 2, verse 1. In the first year of Cyrus, king of the Persians, that the word of the Lord might be accomplished, that he had promised by the mouth of Jeremy. All right, Jeremy is Jeremiah. So when the Persians came into power around 500, the mid 500, 530, 550 BC, um, their first king was Cyrus, right? And we look at the Persians as being the people of the East Indians or the Iranians, right? Back then, they had a vast empire. It was known as probably the biggest empire of that time before anyone else, right? And it stretched from all the way over there by Jerusalem, all the way to where you look at, like, say, China today, right? They had that whole region. I think it was called the Achaemenid Empire or Dynasty. They had different periods of times where whoever was ruling, they brought in a different type, age, and culture. During Cyrus's time, right, he had a different spirit. Unlike what we read in the Apocrypha with the Greeks, where the Greeks came in and forced their culture and influence on us, Cyrus didn't do that. He was allowing a lot of his subjects to follow and practice their own religions, right? But there was a reason how this came to be, right? So we're going to tap into this first verse. It says, again, in the first year, Cyrus, the king of the Persians, that the word of the Lord might be accomplished that he had promised by the mouth of Jeremy or Jeremiah. So let's first go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 25. Jeremiah chapter 25. And we're going to start from verse 11. So Jeremiah chapter 25 and verse 11, it says, and this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. Right. So at the time when Jeremiah was a prophet, he prophesied that Babylon would be the next empire under Nebuchadnezzar to rule, and that Israel would also be captives by the Babylonians and serve them for the period of 70 years. Right. So this was already known during this time of Jeremiah before it happened. Verse 12, and it shall come to pass when 70 years are accomplished that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, saith the Lord, for their iniquity and the land of the Chaldeans, and I will make it perpetual desolation. Right? So over time, 7 years had to be accomplished. And at the end of the 70 years, the Most High says that he was going to now go and judge Babylon. Babylon now would lose its reign. 7 years, they would lose their reign, and then another nation would have to come in and take over them, which would be the Persians. This was that Cyrus that we're reading about here in First Edras, the second chapter. Reading on, it says, and I will bring upon that land all my words which I have pronounced against it, even all that is written in this book, which Jeremiah had prophesied against all the nations. So as we was reading back a couple of weeks ago in the first chapter, how this king of Egypt knew that the Most High had sent him out to go and fight against Nebuchadnezzar because Jeremiah had prophesied to him that he was supposed to go and wage this war against them. So we see that Jeremiah was not only a prophet who prophesied to Israel on certain things, but he also prophesied to the other nations that they would also either rise or fall based on the word of the Most High, right? So we see here that the Lord had prophesied about Babylon reigning for the period of 7 years and then falling. So it had to now have an accomplishment or a prophetic end in order to fulfill the Most High's word, right? So now go to Jeremiah chapter 29. So we read about the 70 years, and then we read about the nation that's supposed to fall or be made desolate, which would be Babylon. Now, check out what also the Lord says. Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 10. So first I read Jeremiah 25, 11 to 13. I'm sorry, 11 to to 13, and I'm going to read 29 and 10. Again, you got that?
God.
All right, if you can read that, Papa Shah.
Jeremiah 29, verse 8. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, let not your prophets and your diviners.
Is that 29?
Yeah, slide. Okay, verse 10.
Okay.
For thus saith the Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good works toward you, in causing you to return to this place.
Right. So the Lord said, during the time of the Babylonian Empire, after 70 years, I'm gonna perform my good word towards you and allow you to return to this place, allow you to come back to Jerusalem. Right. So this is before we even went into Babylon. This is before we even knew about a Cyrus that was going to come in and reign. The Lord says you're going to go into captivity for 70 years, but then after 70 years, you're going to come back to Jerusalem and return. Right. So this was now something that had to happen, had to be accomplished. Now go to 2 Chronicles chapter 36. Second Chronicles chapter 36. And verse 22.
2 Chronicles chapter 36, verse 22. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished.
Right. So this is what we just read in 29 and 10. What had to happen? The Babylonians had to fall after 70 years, and that during that period, the children of Israel would be allowed to come back and return to their place, right? To go and rebuild up what the Babylonians brought down. Read.
The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia.
Hold on, read that again.
The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia.
So now here Cyrus comes to the throne, and now Cyrus is now going to have a change of heart. It wasn't Cyrus's own goodwill. The Most High put the spirit in Cyrus to allow him to go and put forth this initiative to allow Israel to go back and return to their place, right? Read that again.
The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth have the Lord God of heaven given me, and he hath charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah, who is there among you of all his people. The Lord God be with him, and let him go up.
Right. So we see here now another king, just like the king of Egypt, who we was reading a few weeks ago, that spoke about the Most High God telling him to go do something. Here is Cyrus now also giving acknowledgement to the power of Israel, saying, all the kingdoms of the earth have the Lord God of heaven given me. Right? He's not talking about any of these false gods. He's acknowledging that the Lord God of heaven of Israel is the one that now gave him all these kingdoms. How did he know this? Right? The same way Nebuchadnezzar knew. The same way all these other kings knew when they had prophets that came and prophesied to them. Right? So now once this is now known and then it's accomplished, most people are going to give heed to that. They're going to say, yep, this your God is a true God. Sometimes there's competitions about who God is and what God can do. As we read throughout the Kings, when Elijah and them went out there and had competitions with certain false gods. So these prophets now had to go and give understanding to these kings to let them know, you can turn it off. To go give prophecy to these kings to let them know that it is he who raised them up to now take this throne, but then allow them to go and do X, Y, and Z, right? Now, so we read about Cyrus here. Now go to the book of Isaiah. Go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 44. Isaiah chapter 44 and verse 24.
Isaiah chapter 44, verse 24. Thus saith the Lord, thy Redeemer, and he that formed thee from the womb. I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, spreadeth abroad the earth by myself, that frustrated the tokens of the liars, and maketh the diviners mad, that turneth wise men backward, and maketh their knowledge foolish, that confirmeth the word of his servant, and performeth the counsel of his messenger, that saith to Jerusalem, thou shalt be inhabited, and to the cities of Judah ye shall be built, and I will raise up the decayed thereof, that saith deep, be dry, and I will dry up thy rivers.
Right. So the Lord is letting you know that it is he that has the authority, that he confirms words of the prophets to allow certain things to come to pass. So we just read in Jeremiah what the Most High was going to prophesy and have accomplished as far as it pertains to Israel going into captivity and coming back and returning from the captivity to return and restore. So now here during the times of Isaiah, he's also going to say and repeat the same thing. Read on.
That saith of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and shall perform all my pleasure. Even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple, thy foundation shall be laid.
Right. So now he's speaking about Cyrus being his shepherd, being the tool, being the person or vessel that's going to be leveraged and used to allow Israel to go back and build up the nation of Israel, or to repair the breaches. Right. So sometimes the Lord can use Israel, and sometimes the Lord can even use a heathen. This is where the Lord tells you in the times of your affliction, he can allow the enemy to entreat you well. Right. It says that in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 15 and verse 11. I'm gonna read this one, right? Or you can stay there. So this is Jeremiah 15 and 11, where it says, the Lord said, verily it shall be well with thy remnant. Verily I will cause the enemy to entreat thee well in the time of evil and in the time of affliction. So the Lord can stir up the spirit on any one of our enemies to do good by us. And that's what he's doing here with King Cyrus of the Persians, right? He's now putting his spirit to allow us to go and rebuild Jerusalem. He's using him as a shepherd, right? He's going to also give him another title. Go back to Isaiah 45 now and verse 1.
Isaiah 45, verse 1. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two leading gates, and the gates shall not be shut.
Right. So people read this and like, hold on, how is Cyrus then anointed? Right? When you become king, it was customary that you become anointed by someone, right? It's just an honorary or symbolic gesture as far as for you now being selected by the Most High through some prophet. But now here, in this case, the Most High raises up all kings, right? He elevates every king of any nation to be where he needs to be in order to fit in his grand scheme of things. So here by Cyrus being made king, sometimes we look at that as just arbitrary, or is this something that they're doing on their own? Like the Lord don't have no control over that. No, the Most High controls everything that goes on in the earth, right? Whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, whether it's Ahmadinejad, whoever it is, the Most High is aware and privy to anyone rising to that position and using them as a tool or a pawn to fit in the scheme of where it now relates to us. Same thing he did with Pharaoh. He raised up Pharaoh and made his heart proud to now show forth his power. He had to use Pharaoh as that tool to do that, right? And then it now allowed us to see that, wow, our God is the true God. They never had a real God. They had all his power and might, but look how our God took him down, right? So these men, these individuals have been selected or chosen by the Most High also to perform his will. So read that again.
Verse 1. Thus saith the Lord, his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him. And I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him 2-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut.
Right. So this is just going into how the Lord was going to now make them a great empire, and then all the kings will be now paying obeisance to him and bringing them riches. Right. The 2 levy gates is going to be open, and they're going to be coming in paying homage to the Persians, who is now going to be in authority. All right. So now this is just showing you how the Lord promised or prophesied to Jeremiah, and not only to Jeremiah, but even to Isaiah, that these things are going to come to pass. So now when we go back to First Edras, the 2nd chapter, we see that there was a lot more backstory to just the first verse, because it was something that was in the making over time. Even before the Babylonian captivity, this was already in the making. Sometimes the Most High doesn't do this, right? The Most High doesn't always have to explicitly call out what he's doing, right? We get certain time periods where we can see what the Lord's plan is, but he doesn't always show his plan, like how he did here with Cyrus during the time of Jeremiah and Isaiah. He don't always do that. Sometimes he does it to show that, listen, I'm in control. I control this, right? So then as time goes on and things happen, we can't sit back and say, oh, wow, I wonder what happened. Maybe the Most High doesn't have a hand in this, so he didn't know that this was going on. No, he knows everything that's going on. It's just that we need to tap in to understand his will better than what we know and he allows, right? So now going back to first Edras, the 2nd chapter and the 1st verse, it says, in the 1st year of Cyrus, king of the Persians. Now I think it was around 1930, 35, somewhere in there, where that name Persia got changed to Iran, right? They changed Persia to Iran, right? So now when you move forward from the 30s up until now, we sometimes don't link the two, but this is them who was ruling in ancient times, but they just now under a different name. Same thing with us, right? Our name got changed, right? Whether we're so-called Negroes, Haitians, Puerto Ricans, right? We don't associate the biblical names to what our common names are. But now once we have that correlation and we read it with the proper mind, and you can start saying, oh, I know who the Iranians are. Those are the Persians. Yes, those are the Persians who had us in captivity, who the Greeks took over at a certain period of time. Then you start connecting the dots, right? That's why it's a good thing when we start going into history and start connecting it to the Bible, because now it opens up our perspective, right, on history as a whole. So again, it says, in the 1st year of Cyrus, king of the Persians, that the word of the Lord might be accomplished, that he had promised by the mouth of Jeremy. The Lord raised up, let me read from here. The Lord raised up the spirit of Cyrus, the king of the Persians, and he made proclamation through all his kingdoms and also by writing, saying, thus saith Cyrus, king of the Persians, the Lord of Israel, the Most High Lord, have made me king of the whole world, right? Same thing that Daniel told about Nebuchadnezzar and things of that nature. He had prophets that now did the same thing for him. You're going to be king, right? And it happened. So once it happens, that God is the true God. And commanded me to build him an house at Jerusalem in Jewry. If therefore there be any of you that are of his people, let the Lord, even his Lord, be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem that is in Judea, and build the house of the Lord of Israel. For he is the Lord that dwelleth in Jerusalem, right? Not in Shinar and not in Ethiopia and not in Cush, but he dwells in Jerusalem because that is his people. So anyone that's of the nation of Israel that remains here, right? Because there's history that we're going to tap into a little bit later on, that the whole nation collectively, all 12 tribes weren't there, right? It was a portion of us that was there. But anyone that's there, rise up and go back to go and rebuild your city, right? That's what was given, that was charged to him to allow the children of Israel. He himself wasn't going to do it because as you read it, it says, and commanded me to build him an house at Jerusalem and Jewry. That didn't mean that the Persians was going to go and do it. No, he's just saying that it was commanded me that I need to have the authority to go and license this to have done. Same thing with the King James Version Bible. King James didn't translate or write anything. It was commanded him to give the authority for other men to go do it, right? So it's him as a leader, as a king, he now has that charge to make sure that it gets accomplished. Verse 6, whosoever then dwell in the places about, let them help him. Those, I say, that are his neighbors, with gold and with silver, with gifts, with horses, and with cattle, and other things which have been set forth by vow for the temple of the Lord at Jerusalem, right? So anybody who was around at that time, it was commanded that as they go about to build up their city, that you guys help them out, provide them with certain vessels and things that they need in order to dedicate the temple and rebuild and repair Jerusalem. Now, it says here at verse 8, the chief of the families of Judea and of the tribe of Benjamin stood up, the priests also and the Levites, and all they whose mind the Lord had moved to go up and to build an house for the Lord at Jerusalem. So now here it calls out Benjamin, Judeans, and Levites, right? Which we know to be what? The southern kingdom, right? The southern kingdom is who is present here during the times of this Persians and Medes captivity, right? Southern kingdom was the ones who primarily were there during the times of the Greeks, period. Same thing during the times of the Romans, period. Now, does it mean that there was no like Issacharites at all, that there was no Asherites or no. Some of them were there, but collectively as the tribes, like the northern tribes, Gad, Simeon, Naphthalim, all of those, they had left at a certain point in time. Who remembers why? Where did they go and why did they leave?
Jeroboam and Rehoboam.
Not Jeroboam and Rehoboam, a little bit after that. What happened to the northern kingdom?
Well, that was the beginning of it. What he said was the beginning. That's the original separation.
Right, but I'm saying, why were they not present as a collective here? What happened to them that they are not present here?
They was in America by this time.
What happened? But what happened? It was something distinct, right? There's what we know as the Assyrian captivity, right? During that time period, they came and took the 10 tribes away and took them to Assyria. So those 10 tribes left where the other tribes were still there, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, right? And then they put in other people in place of them, right? Let's go to 2 Kings. 2 Kings. So 2 Kings chapter 17. And I'm going to start from verse 20. 2 Kings 17 and 20. You know when y'all got it. So 2 Kings 17 and 20, it says, and the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel and afflicted them and delivered them into the hand of spoilers until he had cast them out of his sight. For he rent Israel from the house of David. And they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king, and Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord and made them sin a great sin. So going back to what you're leaning to in the beginning, right? During the times of Solomon, the Lord took and rent the kingdom, right? So that it was not all under the house of David anymore. So now Rehoboam kept the tribe or the kingdom of Judah, and Jeroboam now was separated, and he had the majority of the tribes as the northern kingdom under Jeroboam, right? So here, the Lord now is really upset with the northern tribes or the children of Israel, right? He's making a distinction between Judah and Israel, southern kingdom, northern kingdom, right? So I'm going to read that again in verse 21. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord and made them sin a great sin under idolatry, right? For the children of Israel walk in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They departed not from them. He was setting up different groves and altars in different places, and they would go and worship there, and they would not worship the Most High, let alone in Jerusalem, right? So this was like a great sin. It drave a wedge between the Most High and the northern tribes. It says 23, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants, the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. So at the times of the king of his reading, they had now departed and went into the Assyrian captivity, right? Those 10 tribes, the majority of them departed and left. Now we know that all of them totally didn't leave, because when you read in the gospel, you read about an Asherite that was there in Jerusalem, right? She was a widower. So now it's not to say that, oh, they didn't have any of these other tribes there. They did have like little remnants here and there, but the collectives of the tribe, the chiefs of the tribes had departed and went into Syria. And then over time, leaving the Assyrian captivity, they migrated with the help of the Lord and came over here to the Americas, North, Central, South America, throughout the Caribbean, right? That's what you have now. So all of this was now predicated because the Most High was upset. So those tribes left, right? Now, we're going to stop there at 23. We're going to come back to this same chapter. So just put a leaf in there or something. We're going to come back to that because there's going to be another aspect that we got to read pertaining to this storyline. So let's go back to First Edras chapter 2. First Edras chapter 2. Right. I'm going to read verse 8 again and then move on. It says, then the chief of the families of Judea and of the tribe of Benjamin stood up, the priests also, and the Levites, and all they whose mind the Lord had moved to go up to build an house for the Lord at Jerusalem. So the Lord stirred up certain families to be a part of that group that was going to go, right? Verse 9, and they that dwelt round about them and helped them in all things with silver and gold, with horses and cattle, and with very many free gifts of a great number whose minds were stirred up thereto. So the Lord put that spirit in individuals to even donate a lot of different things to the rebuilding and the restructuring of Jerusalem, right? You see that from time and time again throughout the Old Testament. When the city needed to be repaired or rebuilt, people came and donated, right? Understanding, we're not talking about like giving $5 here and $10 here. They were donating gold and silver and giving up cattle and certain things in order for the purpose of the city and the temple, right? So that shows you that how dedicated we were to our city, right? A lot of times you got that now with people who come from, I always separate Judah from all the rest of the tribes, because unlike the rest of the tribes, whether, you can even say, I can throw in Gad and Reuben probably in there too. But if you come from, like, say, Puerto Rico, or you come from Dominican Republic, or you come from Cuba, you come from Barbados, you come from Mexico, these tribes at least somewhat have like a pseudo home that they can now come over here and work and send back money and victuals and things to their family back home who may not have as much, right? So they'll do that. I'm coming here, get a good life, work, send some money back to my family. But for like those who are primarily here in North America, Judah, same thing with Gad, it's like, where do you send that to, right? Gad doesn't, well, they're going to go back to, they don't have another land. Their land was stolen, right? Judah, they're not claiming us over there in Africa like how we would think that they do, especially leading up or prior to the past 3 to 4 years. I know they're saying Ghana is trying to become that, but we haven't had that. So now when you look at people wanting to give and donate to the cause, it's different when you now know that that city is the Most High city. Most High's name is in that city. So when you saying, listen, I'm about to go help the Lord, I'm not just helping my people, I'm helping the Most High rebuild his city. Then it's going to give you cause to want to donate and give more, because you know as much as you give the Lord will come and double that, twofold, threefold, fivefold, because you now giving back to him what he already gave to you, right? So this is what we are saying here when it talks about they help them in all things. These are not light things, right? This is probably people's, half or more than half of their inventory to go and give to what the Most High has now licensed Cyrus to allow us to rebuild and repair. So I'm going to read this again, verse 9. And they that dwell round about them and help them in all things with silver and gold, with horses and cattle, and with very many free gifts of a great number. So there was a lot of things that got donated outside of even just what was highlighted, whose minds were stirred up here too, or there too.
Who was doing this donating?
So you have it says in verse 6, whoever then dwell in places about, let them help him. Those I say, though that are his neighbors. So anyone that was round about, whether it be within our nation or even the other nations, because the Lord will put a spirit on them to help us do these things. Correct. Almost like when you remember when you're reading the time of Esther, when the Most High changed that whole fate and now allowed us to now reclaim and defend ourselves. Then it says, and many of them became Jews, right? Now they wanted to now align themselves. They didn't physically become Jews, but they now just wanted to follow our ways and become intermingled with us, right? So it was a spirit that now had come upon them. Verse 10, King Cyrus also brought forth the holy vessels which Nebuchadnezzar had carried away from Jerusalem and had set up in his temple of idols, right? So that's what you read in the Old Testament during the times of the Babylonians, that when they went in to make us captives, they went into the temple, destroyed it, but took the holy vessels and set it up in their temples. So after the Persians and the Medes came and conquered the Babylonians, they now went to their holy places and saw that the relics and the vessels of the Israelites was there, and they didn't destroy them. They took them and allowed us to go take it, cleanse, and bring that back to Jerusalem. We're talking like things like the menorah and so forth and so on. Those things was now given back to us by Cyrus. It says in verse 11, now when Cyrus, king of the Persians, had brought them forth, he delivered them to Mithridates, his treasurer. I mean, as far as for those things that was taken out of the temple, he gave them to his treasurer to go and deliver to us. And by him, they were delivered to Sanabassa, the governor of Judea, right? And this was the number of them, 1,000 golden cups and 1,000 of silver, censers of silver 29, vials of gold 30, and of silver 2,410, and 1,000 other vessels. So now these is vessels that was taken from the temple, right? So now when things was donated, you don't think that it's just like eight plates and 27 cups or whatever. No, there was thousands of these that was donated in a part of the sanctuary for the office and purpose of the dedication of things that needed to go to the Lord. So you're talking about 1,000 golden cups that the priest all would use, right? Because the priest not only sacrificed and offered things up, but they also ate of the sacrifices. They went and drank of the wine and the things that was given to them by the children of Israel. They partake. and they ate within those circuits. Verse 14. So all the vessels of gold and of silver which were carried away were 5,400, 69. Right? There's a lot of vessels and things that was transported on carts and mules and things that have been taken out. Remember, this is the most holiest temple for world renown. So when they came into our temple to take certain things, no one else had that mind state to make certain things the way in which the Most High ordered the Levites to do for the office of the sanctuary in the temple. Right? It says in verse 15, these were brought back by Sanballat together with them of the captivity from Babylon to Jerusalem. So that's like its own storyline, right? I know we say from Babylon to Timbuktu, but you got from Babylon to Jerusalem. And that could be a whole storyline of what transpired. That could be its own little mini series, because there were certain things that we're about to get into that also happened during this period of time that caused some strife, right? So now let's go to Edras, the 4th chapter. The book of Ezra, the 4th chapter. So now as the vessels are now being transported back to Israel, to Jerusalem, the people are now going back to repair and build the city back up. Now start keeping the high holy days and start keeping the feast days and everything, doing the offerings and the sacrifices. This is now happening over a period of time. This is not like a month, right? It's not like a couple of weeks. There's a lot of time that's going on to do this when we're talking about repairing and the foundations thereof. Right now, it may take somebody, 4 months to build a house, or 3 months, not even to build a house, a whole house, right? But it took time to build these things back then, longer than what we today do. Matter of fact, before we read Ezra chapter 4, go to St. John chapter 2. Go to St. John chapter 2. St. John chapter 2 and verse 18. Gabar, when you get that, if you can read that, Baba Kushab. St. John chapter 2 and 18.
This is the book of St. John, chapter 2 and 18. Then answered the Jews and said unto him, what sign showest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things?
Right, so they look at get a sign from Yahushua that he is the Messiah, like he's the one, right? And what is going to be the sign of this deliverance? Read.
Jesus answered and said unto them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up.
Right. Destroy this temple, and in 3 days it's going to get resurrected. So he was talking about one thing, but they was thinking about another. Read.
Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple and building, and will thou rear it up in 3 days?
Right. So the Jews at the time was like, look, this temple that we see right here under Herod the Great, it took 40 years, 46 years for them to repair and build it up to its monstrosity that it is. And you're going to destroy it in what? 3 days? You're going to, but come on now, right? But I'm going into the length of time, 46 years. That's a long time. Some people live and die within that period of time, and they were still building the temple for what was going to get destroyed anyway during the times of 70 AD, right? So 46 years it took to rebuild or repair that temple during Herod's time. So now here the Jews going back into Jerusalem to rebuild the temple then and to repair the city. So it's not dealing with months. We're dealing with years, right? When you start putting cement down to lay the foundation, you just don't do that in a week and just start building. No, you got to let things settle. Let it settle in the earth over long periods of time. 6 months to a year, if that. And then you start building the structure on top of that. So we talking, periods of time that now little things here and there is going to start coming into play. But read the next verse, then we go back. Verse 21. But he spake of the temple of his body. That's what he was talking about. That was going to get destroyed and then reared up in 3 days. He was talking about his crucifixion, right? Prophesying about that. All right, so now let's go to Ezra chapter 4, verse 1. Ezra chapter 4 and verse 1. You know when y'all got that. So it says, now when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the children of the captivity builded the temple unto the Lord God of Israel, then they came to Zerubbabel and to the chief of the fathers and said unto them, let us build with you, for we seek your God as ye do, and we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon king of Ashur, which brought us up hither, right? So now here come the heathen, and they're saying, look, we see that y'all about to rebuild this temple. We want to come and build with y'all, right? We seek the same God you seek. Matter of fact, we was the ones that was brought up here since the king of Ashur put us here, right? Now, when did that happen, right? We was just reading it, right? We read the first half of the Most High removing the kingdom of Israel and bringing them into the captivity of the Assyrians. But as they were brought out, somebody else was brought in. Let's go to that. Hold this in Ezra 4 and go back to 2 Kings chapter 17. So go back to 2 Kings chapter 17 and verse 24. So let's find out what these guys is talking about here during this period. So 2 Kings chapter 17 and verse 24. Let me know when you got it. All right, it says, and the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cuthah and from Avah and from Hamath and from Sepharvaim and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not the Lord. Therefore the Lord sent lions among them, which slew some of them. So now they're the ones that's dwelling in the land of Samaria, right? And as they're dwelling in the land, they're committing all types of abominations and things. So the Most High got wroth and went and sent lions, put the spirit in the lions. So now you see sometimes when you see rogue dogs and certain things in certain countries, they just start attacking people. Sometimes the Most High put the spirit in these animals to go and do just that, like he did here to these nations when they was in the land, sent lions amongst them to go and kill them, right? Verse 26, wherefore they spake to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations which thou hast removed and placed in the city of Samaria know not the manner of the God of the land. Therefore he hath sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them because they know not the manner of the God of the land. So they don't know how to live here. They don't know what the rules are. They don't know what the rights and practices are. That's why they're going through what they're going through. Something got to change. We need some knowledge. Verse 27. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, carry thither one of the priests whom you brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, and let him teach them the manner of the God of the land. Right? So now you had a Levite or a priest, not even a Levite, a priest from the northern kingdom now come back to come and teach them what they're supposed to be doing. Right? It says, and one of the priests whom they carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear the Lord. Howbeit, every nation made gods of their own and put them in the houses of the high places which the Samaritans had made, every nation in their city wherein they dwelt. And the men of Babylon made Sakath Benoth, and the men of Kuth of Nagar, and the men of Hamath, and made Ashama. And the Abites made Nabas and Tatark, and the Sepharthites burnt their children in the fire to Adramelech and Adramelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. Right? So now, here it is, they're dwelling in the land thinking that they are worshiping the same God that we worship by their practices, because they're following the teachings of what the northern priests came and taught them, but they were not, right? They were setting up other gods the same way the northern tribes was doing it, right? And that's how they've been dwelling. So they were placed there by the Assyrians in our land. So now, over time, when the Babylonians came in and took it, they had us in captivity. Now here it is, we're going back to build up. Now here they're like, oh, they're going to rebuild up the city. That's what we was at before. They knew their history. So they said, look, we want to come and build with you. We seek the same God as you, not knowing that that's not true, because they learned of the false way to come and serve our God. So Israel knew, or those of the southern kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, we understood this because we had wars and battles with the northern kingdom based on what they was doing. We knew that they was off, right? So they taught them the wrong ways. And now they come to align themselves with us, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, in the reparation of the city of Jerusalem. That's what we read now in First Edras chapter 4 and verse 2. Hey, can we build with y'all? We seek your God. We was put here by who? The Assyrians during this time period that we're reading right now. Gabar.
So you're saying that the priests that they sent for from the northern kingdom taught them the wrong way to worship.
Right. Because the priests from the northern kingdom, were they worshiping the Most High the right way?
No, but they knew the right way.
But were they doing it? Let's eliminate these heathen. Without the heathen there, while they were there, were they worshiping the Most High the right way? No. So much so that the Most High got upset with them and said, listen, I'm about to get rid of all of y'all. Y'all gonna go into captivity to the Assyrians. So now once they got removed out, and now they got these heathen in there, they now trying to live and dwell in the land. And they like, yo, we getting killed by these damn lions and all kind of stuff is going on with us. We got to figure out how to dwell in the land. So the king said, go get one of them priests from the people that you took out of the land. So these guys was all off to begin with. Every king from the time of Jeroboam was all wicked. There wasn't one righteous. There wasn't one priest that was doing right. They was setting up groves left and right. So he brought one of them down and said, hey, go and teach them how to go and worship God. And as you see, every nation made gods of their own, because the priests of the children of Israel, those known that they were setting up false gods. So they was dealing with things that was not right.
But if it doesn't say that the lions continue to kill them, that means they were doing something right if the lions didn't continue to kill them.
Okay, we just read, every nation set up gods of their own in the high places. Is that right? In Jerusalem or Samaria? If you are seeking our God, are you going to go set up another God? That's like someone coming from Moab and they say, hey, we want to worship the Most High God of Israel, right? And somebody who's from a church from across the street, from whatever Baptist church that is, and says, hey, I'll teach you how to worship the Most High God. And they go and say, listen, you got to get a church, you got to set up a cross, you got to get an altar, you got to go and, have a place downstairs that right after you eat, you can come down, right after you worship, you can go eat pork and you can go and do this. And this is Jesus. And they're teaching them that this is the right way to worship God. Is that right? Now, they Israel, right? And they're going through these things. Now, like fast forward, you can look at it at today's time. They are all worshiping the Most High in the wrong way, right? All of them. Baptist, Methodist, Catholic, whatever the case may be. Now, on a normal occasion, is lions running up in there? Is pit bulls running up in there? Right? They're not going through the harsh atrocities. Now, the Most High will jack them up and put a fire through their building or, certain things. But on the surface, is not appearing that what they're doing is wrong, so much so you got mega churches, right? You got thousands of people that now are filling church. They're not even building a regular church. They got like stadiums, right, to go and figure out how to worship. or to try to worship the Most High God of the Bible, right? Because they're reading the Bible, but they worship in the wrong way, right? Someone is showing them wrong. Now, we know our people have been shown by Esau and them how to worship the Most High wrong, right? What is that? Proverbs 12:26, right? The righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth them. So they seduced us and are going following other practice and doing other things, thinking that that's good, it's profitable, it's righteous, right? You're going to get a gain from this. But all the while, it's separating us and moving us further and further away from God. Now, some people even prosper when these things happen, right? Some people make money, they get certain accolades, they get certain positions. Those are all temporary things. The Most High will allow that because it's fulfilling a bigger judgment, right? But it's letting us know that when they first came in, they was off, and when they brought the other people in, still was off. So much so that now when we read the gospel and we read in Matthew 10th chapter, and Christ says, don't go into the way of the Samaritan. Don't even go there. It was all jacked up. We had these heathen, all this influence in there. That's not where we're going to go, because they the ones that's been put in place in those areas.
So the woman at the well, she was a plant.
When we say a plant,
No, she was one of those ones that
yes,
they planted there.
Correct. Correct.
He was asking to get this water.
Right. Exactly.
She was one of them. She was a plant. She said, "Our Father." Jacob.
Correct. We know who we worship. We know who we worship. Right. There's gonna a time y'all not gonna worship it ever, right? Because that's not for you, it's for us, right? For salvation is of the Jews, right? So now, when we say salvation for the Jews, salvation means for the nation of Israel, right? So I know that there's a contention between if she was an Israelite or if she was a heathen, right? We have this conversation all the time with Bar from the other camp. But based on how we read it and what we see and how Yahweh responded to her, salvation is of the Jews, then because if that was the case, she's a Jew, right? She would have been a Jew. Well, why wouldn't it have been for her? Right? Paul going out to go and teach those who was in the Gentile state of mind, salvation, the opportunity is always open. You can repent and you can come back in, right? So now it would have been extended to her as well, but Yahweh made a breach or made a distinction that it was for us and not for you. But we can go deeper into that, after class. I know.
All right. Now, getting back to it, okay. So what I was saying is that, okay, they put a priest in, right?
Right.
Who taught him the wrong way. But what I'm saying, he must have taught him a little bit of the right way, just like these mega churches. They don't have 100% right, they got it 50% right.
What's the 50%? What did they get right?
Well, Christ came to die for sin.
No, that's not what they got right, because they say Christ came to die for everybody's sin.
Well, I said they got it halfway right.
Okay, halfway right, okay.
So that was enough for the lions to stop killing, but other lions would have continued to destroy them. Can you say that?
No, I can't say that.
Can you say that?
I can't say that.
Why doesn't it say the lions continue to kill them?
Again, this is why I said certain things are implied and certain things are implied and certain things are explicit. So do I know if they stopped killing them? I don't know if they stopped killing them. I don't know. It didn't say it stopped or it didn't say it continued. Okay. So it's going to be conjecture. But what we do know is that after they brought him in from 28, everyone went and started to set up these things.
Well, I just was saying that they just taught them enough so that the lions wouldn't kill them. They still went off.
Right.
But they taught them enough.
Correct.
The lions.
Right. I agree.
Okay. My next statement is that if the priest came to teach these people for a certain amount of years, then his wife and children came. And that's who that lady was.
I don't even know what that meant. I don't even know what that meant. His wife and child. I don't even know what that meant, but we'll.
These children.
Okay.
I mean, these people, so the lions wouldn't kill him. He brought his family with him because he was going to be there a certain amount of time. And that's who that lady was at the week.
It was his daughter, his wife?
Well, depending on how long it was.
I was about to say, because we're talking about No. Listen, we're talking about at this point here. This is the Assyrian captivity, right? We didn't even get to like the fullness of the Babylonian to get into the Persians and the Medes, to get into the Greeks, then to get to the Romans, because that's when you get to the woman at the well, to the top of the Romans. So you got to start looking at how long did the Greeks rule, how long did the Persians rule. Then you get into the Romans to see what that disparity is. We're talking several hundreds of years. Okay, but now, all right. So we could settle that after. I don't want to divert and go too deep into it. Yeah. You add the little right. So let's go back to Edras. Spend a little bit too much time. Let's go back to Edras chapter 4, and we at verse 2 again. 4 and 2. Ezra in the Bible. It says, Then they came to Zerubbabel and to the chief of the fathers and said unto them, Let us build with you, for we seek your God as ye do. And we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Ashur, which brought us up hither. But Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief of the fathers of Israel said unto them, Ye have nothing to do with us to build an house unto our God, but we ourselves together will build unto the Lord power of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, hath commanded us. Right? So these men knew that these was heathens. They can't partake in rebuilding of the holy temple, right? Because the holy temple had to require certain priests and certain of the nation of Israel to now go and perform certain duties. It was not going to be righteous to have them come in and partake side by side with us in building the sanctuary, right? It says, Then the people of the land weakened the hands of the people of Judah and troubled them in building, right? So now once they kind of dissed them and said, nah, y'all can't come and help us build, and now separated themselves from them, they now took all costs to go now and make it harder for us to rebuild the city, right? So in today's times, it will be like, yo, don't sell them any wood. Don't contract to them, because if you contract to them, then that's going to mess our relationship up. So now as they go in and say, listen, we need to get some wood. Nah, we don't have no more. What do you mean you don't have no more? Just last week, we everything. Nah, we can't do that right now. I got other projects that I need to go and do. You're like, all right, damn. Now I got to go over here. And you go over here, and that person don't want to mess with you. Then you might find somebody who has no affinity with them, and they can give you some supplies, but it's at a small cost, small fraction. And it's like that. How are we going to get the materials that we need to rebuild? How are we going to get certain experts that's now knowledgeable in these things if nobody want to help us? So that's what they was doing. They was weakening the hands of the people by making it harder for us to go out and do our business in the reparation. Verse 5, and hired counselors against them to frustrate their purpose all the days of Cyrus, king of Persia, even until the reign of Darius, king of Persia. So from the time that he made that declaration and many few years in, these individuals came in and made it harder. From the time of Cyrus, his empire, then it goes to another one, and then it goes to Darius, right? All of that period of time, they weakened it so that we couldn't rebuild. We couldn't repair. We're talking 40, 50, 60 years of this troubling going on, right? So, when we mentioned the temple during the time of Yahushua, 46 years to build, and we seeing how long is now a gap in space and time that they hampered this. That's a long time. That's why it's good to even go look at the dates of these kings, right? So I think from about Cyrus came in like a 530-ish, somewhere around there. And I think Darius came in somewhere 480, 490, somewhere in that period of time, or 520. Like during that period, everything was kind of shut down. Verse 6, and the reign of Ahasuerus, in the beginning of his reign, wrote they unto him an accusation against the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem. So you see, there's always a thing where some people come up and they go meet with the king, and they bring a false witness. They bear false accusations against us to go become a detriment or a hindrance to us as a people. We have Ezra chapter 4 and verse 6. It says, in the reign of Ahasuerus, in the beginning of his reign, brought they unto him an accusation against the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem, right? So we could stop there because it's going to pick up the same thing as we're reading here in First Edras, the 2nd chapter, right? The same thing that they're now about to disclose here in Ezra 4 is going to be spoken up again here in First Edras chapter 2. So we have verse 16 back in First Edras chapter 2. So now, First Edras chapter 2 and 16, it says, but in the time of Artaxerxes, king of the Persians, Belamus, Mithridates, and Tibalius, and Rathamus, and Beel-Telamus, and Semalias, the secretary, right? It's interesting taking these Persian names and translating them into, Latin or Greek or Hebrew names. Comes a syllable contest, right? It says, with others that were in the commission with them, dwelling in Samaria and other places, wrote unto him against them that dwelt in Judea and Jerusalem these letters following. To King Artaxerxes, our Lord, thy servants, Rathamus, the story writer, and Selemias, the scribe, and the rest of their council, and the judges that are in Celesyria and Phoenice. Be it now known to the Lord the King that the Jews that are come up from you to us, being come into Jerusalem, that rebellious and wicked city, do build the marketplaces and repair the walls of it, and do lay the foundation of the temple, right? So they give you a bit of insight as to what was being done. So we had to have, our marketplaces all rebuilt, right? Where you want to go and buy, clothing and things of that nature. You want to get food, right? Where you can go and buy certain merchandise and things that's good for your household. All that was all destroyed from the Babylonian captivity. Now, as we're coming back in, we got to rebuild our own Black Wall Street all up again, right? It takes time, right? It takes time, effort, materials to rebuild. So they're observing this, right? So that same spirit that was on all the nations is on them at that time. They trying to rebuild the marketplaces and all these other things and lay the foundation for the temple. Verse 19. Now, if this city and the walls thereof be made up again, they will not only refuse to give tribute, but also rebel against the king. And for as much as the things pertaining to the temple are now in hand, we think it meet not to neglect such a matter, right? So if we leave them alone, they're going to arouse up insurrection and go against you and not pay your taxes, not pay homage to you, right? And start slandering everything that we have set in motion. You got to pay attention to them. Once that temple is built, Ahasuerus, Xerxes title, once that temple is built, that's it. They now going to begin to worship their God, and their God is going to come and fight for them, and that's going to be it. That's what the thinking is, right? It says, verse 21, but to speak unto our Lord the King to the intent that if it be thy pleasure, it may be sought out in the books of thy fathers. And thou shalt find in the chronicles what is written concerning these things, and shalt understand that that city was rebellious, troubling both kings and cities, and that the Jews were rebellious and raised always wars therein, for the which cause even this city was made desolate, right? So the city wasn't made desolate because we waged war. It was made desolate because we broke the commandments. But in the past, when we did now have some type of, beef with the other nations, we went and fought against them. That's what they highlighted, how the Most High came and fought and defended us and wiping out these nations. They're remembering these things, but it's spoken of from a different perspective, right? Sometimes it's not always the same vantage point. How the Most High is defending us, in righteousness, someone else on the opposition may look at it in a different way. Like, they came and slaughtered us without cause. These guys is wicked. They deal with this, they deal with that. At some point, we got to get revenge. So it's just told from different vantage point. Nabiyah.
Kind of like the version of Ecclesiasticus about praise no man before thy ears to speak. So what we got to deal with now, we listen to the news, current events. Sometimes they often not the right what, the wrong why.
Right.
And you see this another example here too.
Exactly. So we read 23 again, and that the Jews were rebellious to the commandments and raised always war therein, false, for the which cause even this city was made desolate, also false, right? It says, wherefore now we do declare unto thee, O Lord the King, that if this city be built again and the walls thereof set up anew, thou shalt from henceforth have no passage into Cilicia and Phoenice. Cilicia is up there by where Lebanon is, right? So that area is not going to get blocked off and prevented for your trade and your commerce. Like you won't have that ability to do that anymore. Verse 25. Then the king wrote back again to Rathamus, the story writer, to Beetlemus, to Salamus the scribe, and to the rest that were in the commission, and dwellers in Samaria and Syria and Phoenice after this manner. So those dwellers that was there were these individuals, were these men, right? The nations dwelling in Samaria, Syria, and Phoenice, right? It says, I have read the epistle which ye have sent unto me. Therefore, I commanded to make diligent search, and it have been found that the city, or that city was from the beginning practicing against the kings, right? Or in this case, they had wars or fights, right? Let me read this in 2 Kings. 2 Kings chapter, I think it's 18. Second Kings chapter 18. And I'm going to start from verse 5. All right, so 2 Kings chapter 18 and verse 5, it says, he trusted in the Lord God of Israel. This he is speaking about Hezekiah, right? So that after him was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor any that were before him. For he clave to the Lord and departed not from following him, but kept his commandments, which the Lord commanded Moses, right? It says, and the Lord was with him, and he prospered whithersoever he went forth. And he rebelled against the king of Assyria and served him not, right? So the king at that time, right, was the one that was ruling in that area. Now, when Hezekiah came to the throne, he now was on point with the Most High, started now establishing the law amongst the nation of Israel, and the Most High began to become with him, show favor unto him. And when he took that position, he rebelled against the king of Assyria. Says, listen, I ain't serving you, right? I ain't following what you want to do. And then he went out and had wars with those who was in opposition to him. So now from their history, yes, they will say, listen, the children of Judah, the king, they came and fought against us. So that's what they search in their chronicles, in their records, right? That's the beauty of having records. Not only do we have them, but they have them too. So it'll corroborate the event. So around this time, such and such BC, or this king, you can see what they had in their history books, right? Or you go to another nation, you see what they have in their history books. So as he's now going into their own chronicles, it now aligns with what we was going through. Like, yeah, we rebelled and fought against them because they was trying to impose their will and try to, nah, that's not going to happen, right? So this is what now they are bringing up as a reason to stunt the growth of the children of Israel at that time, albeit we was not going to go and fight against them. Go on.
Yeah, where it can't go into history like this. We pull up the Bible, go to Chronicles, they scoff us. But we go, here, but this also is found in the Cyrus Civil. This is also found in the Nebuchadnezzar Chronicle or the Persian Chronicle.
Right.
And was able to be quiet.
Right.
So this is prime. So this is,
right. Right. It's the same thing. Like if you say it, right? It holds weight. But if an Edomite or a Moabite come up and say, no, 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 he's right because I seen this over in this thing. Oh, okay. All right, now I believe you. But just by itself, most folks don't want to stand on it, right? I think it's just words. It's just something that somebody made up and just put into the book. So back in First Edras chapter 2, and we have verse 26 again. It says, "I have read the epistle which ye have sent unto me. Therefore I commanded to make diligent search, and it have been found that that city have from the beginning practicing against the kings," meaning fighting or warring against the kings. "And the men therein were given to rebellion and war, and that mighty kings and fierce were in Jerusalem, who reigned and exacted tributes in Cilicia and Phoenice," right? Which you'll read about in the stories of the kings, right? There were certain times that we made certain people tributaries. "Now, therefore, I have commanded to hinder those men from building the city, and heed to be taken that there be no more done in it, and that those wicked workers proceed no further to the annoyance of kings. Then King Artaxerxes, his letters being read, Rathamus and Salamias, the scribe, and the rest that were in commission with them, were moving in haste toward Jerusalem with a troop of horsemen and a multitude of people in battle array, began to hinder the builders. And the building of the temple in Jerusalem ceased until the second year of the reign of Darius, king of the Persians," right? So all that period of time, nothing happened. And then when you read in, I think is Haggai, you read that the Most High, actually, let me get that real quick, the book of Haggai. The book of Haggai. It's right before Zechariah. Haggai, the first chapter. First chapter, first verse. And then we're going to jump down. Right? How did in the second year of Darius' reign did this now come to pass, what we just read there in Ezra? So in Haggai chapter 1, verse 1, it says, "In the second year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, in the first day of the month, came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet unto Zerubbabel, the son of Sachiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, the son of Josedek, the high priest, saying," right? So now the Most High is about to bring word about what needed to happen with the rebuilding of the temple. "Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, This people say, the time is not to come, the time that the Lord's house should be built." So we delayed based on what these men was doing. We just said, man, maybe we just don't build the temple. Maybe we just don't go and rebuild. It's not for now. Maybe it's for later on when the Messiah come, or maybe it's for later on when such and such come back. It's not for right now. But the Most High said, no, it is now the time. Verse 3, "Then came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, Is it time for you, O ye, to dwell in your sealed houses, and this house lie waste? Now therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. Ye have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages to put it into a bag with holes." So the Lord is now saying the things that's happening to you is because you're not dealing with me right. Like, why y'all not building my temple? Y'all got these houses, but y'all not prospering because you forgot about me, right? Now is the time that you got to come and repair and rebuild my house. Verse 7, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. Go up to the mountain and bring wood and build the house, and I will take pleasure in it, and I will be glorious, saith the Lord." So as you read, I will be glorified throughout it, saith the Lord. So as you read further on down, it just goes more into Haggai now going to Zerubbabel and them and telling them, listen, y'all got to get back on the good foot and go rebuild this temple. And then they go back to Darius and now show Darius, hey, we got to rebuild this temple. Show in your record when Cyrus the king gave us authority to go and rebuild. And Darius does just that. He goes into the records and sees that there was a previous king that gave them license that was stirred up by the Most High to go and rebuild. And then he allows the children of Israel to now go and rebuild and repair the temple, right? And that's how, after the Babylonians destroyed the temple, during Ezra's time, that the temple was repaired, right? So that's the second building of the temple, right? Solomon built it. Over time, it got destroyed, and then Ezra came and rebuilt the temple. What was done during Christ's time with Herod was not a total rebuild, right? It was repaired and made more magnificent, and then that got all destroyed, right? That's not there anymore. So we're going to have another temple built in the kingdom to worship and serve the Most High. All right. So now let's go back. Now we're going to jump into the third chapter. So we've done the second chapter pertaining to the restoration and the history pertaining to us going back and rebuilding the city and the temple. And now we're going to jump into some gamesmanships and things that happened during the reign of Darius, right? So this is chapter 3, verse 1. Now, when Darius reigned, he made a great feast unto all his subjects, and unto all his household, and unto all the princes of Media and Persia, and to all the governors and captains and lieutenants that were under him, from India unto Ethiopia, of 127 provinces, right? So when you go as far over to India, right, and then you come all the way over to Ethiopia, and we talk about they had a vast kingdom, it stretched a very wide range. I seen you have pulled it up on the other computer here, as far as for the map that shows their empire. Let me see if I could bring it up real quick. So I got this one here. Let me see. Yeah, I just found one. All right, so this is that region that they had as an empire. So you see over here, we're talking about Ethiopia down there in northeast Africa, and then you go all the way across. You see, throughout Israel, Jerusalem, up there throughout parts of Asia Minor, and then all the way across throughout India, on the way to what we know parts of even China, right? They had all of that. As I said, 127 provinces. And imagine the different nations of people that's dwelling in these different regions, right? It's a lot of different, it's a lot of coverage for them back there, right? They even have, portions over here where they have Egypt, Ethiopia down here, all of this, Libya, Phrygia, where Armenia is, all the way over, right, to here. That was the Persians' empire, all right? So now, coming back, it says in verse 3 now, and when they had eaten and drunken and being satisfied and were gone home, then Darius the king went into his bedchamber and slept, and soon afterward awaked. Then 3 young men that were of the guard that kept the king's body spake one to another, let every one of us speak a sentence. He that shall overcome, and whose sentence shall seem wiser than the others, unto him shall the king Darius give gifts and great things in token of victory. Right? So you see this happen sometimes throughout different empires or through different circuits without the courts where, people do certain things or try to elevate themselves to now get the purple robe or to get that shine from the king, right? Daniel, even though that's not something he desired, something that indirectly happened with him because of his wisdom, right? So when you go to Daniel chapter 5, I think it's Daniel chapter 5, I think 24. Daniel chapter 5, and I'm going to start at 13. Right, Daniel chapter 5 and verse 13. So we remember Nebuchadnezzar was about trying to find somebody that could interpret his dreams that he was having, right? He had all his astrologers and all these different people, but no one can break down his dream. So now he's about to bring Daniel in. It says, then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, art thou the Daniel, or art thou that Daniel, which art of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry? I have even heard of thee, that the spirits of the gods is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But they could not show the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of thee that thou canst make interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now, if thou canst read the writing and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and shalt be the third ruler in the kingdom, right? So through your wisdom, you're going to be elevated. Not for dunking a ball, hitting a home run, right? Sliding to a base, right? Or any of these other things that most people now become, highly esteemed. This was back then, they were still regarding wisdom, right? How can you break certain things down and tell me futuristic things? That's what they regarded back then. So now he like, listen, I'll give you, I'll put a nice chain on your neck, put a purple robe on, everything, right? If you could break this down. Check out what Daniel says, verse 17. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy reward to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king and make known to him the interpretation. So Daniel, like, I don't care all about that. Keep it. Give it to somebody else. That's not my thing, right? But I'm going to break this down for you, right? And then Daniel does break it down. So now jump to verse 29. It says, then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom, right? So Daniel, based on his wisdom, became elevated amongst the Babylonians at that time. So that was a thing. Like, you was wise and you was able to counsel the king on certain matters and you was like a highly esteemed person within the court. So now when we come back here to First Edras chapter 3, they're looking to get the same garner for them, right? Not to say that they want the chain on their neck or whatever, but they still wanted to be clothed in purple, royalty to a certain regard. So I'm going to read First Edras chapter 3 and verse 5 again. Let every one of us speak a sentence, he that shall overcome, meaning have the best sentence, whose sentence shall seem wiser than the others, unto him shall the king give great gifts and great things in token of victory, as to be clothed in purple, to drink in gold, and to sleep upon gold, and a chariot with bridles of gold, and an head tire of fine linen, and a chain about his neck, right? So having these things, you can imagine, man, if you had purple on, you had a nice chain, iced out, right? You had a linen mitre, right? But more so had the stamp of the king. Man, you walk through the circuits of the kingdom or the city, like, stuff don't stink. Everybody's admiring you, especially because of your wisdom. right? They do that now on a carnal level for ball players and actors and rappers and things of that nature with no wisdom, right? There's no wisdom in them, but that's how they're treated today, right? Huh? Look at his chain. Look at his car. Yeah. Easy, right? Whatever, yeah, these tangible things to make a person become elevated, where it's all about wisdom. Yeah. Exactly. That's why, what is that in Isaiah 13th chapter? I forget the verse. When the Lord said that he's going to make a man more precious than fine gold, right? How is he going to make us more precious than fine gold? Through the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of his commandments, right? We're going to be like what they were trying to establish back then, during Daniel's time, during this time. If your sentence is wiser, if you can bring forth truths and things, man, you're going to be more precious than fine gold. Everyone is going to come to you to get the answer or the truth. We're going to be gods on the earth, or angels on the earth, walking about, right? Ministers of the Most High, right? We're not going to be into all these other things in order to gain that accolade. It's going to be through this word. So this is now the rehearsal. It's the proving grounds to start getting it now, even though the Most High is going to give it to us in fullness, but we've proven ourselves that with what we have been given, we can start doing that now out there in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, is he still out there? I haven't seen him in a minute. Yeah. All right. So first Edras chapter 3, and we have verse 7 now. And he shall sit next to Darius because of his wisdom, and shall be called Darius his cousin. Check that out. It's like he's family now. He's family. Cause verse 8. And then everyone wrote his sentence, sealed it, and laid it under King Darius's pillow, and said that when the king is risen, some will give him the writings. And of whose side the king and the 3 princes of Persia shall judge, that his sentence is the wisest. To him shall the victory be given, as was appointed. So they now came up with the rules, right? How things going to work. Write down your sentence, put it on the bed, and then later on, these men going to come take it, and they're going to be the judge, right? We're going to read it out, and they're going to be a part of this whole thing to see which one is the wisest, right? So now, verse 10, it says, the first wrote, wine is the strongest, right? Wine has the most influence within a realm or within the kingdom. That was his sentence. That's what he was getting at. The second wrote, the king is the strongest, right? So the king, he now has the most influence, or the strongest entity that's within a city or a realm. Verse 12, the third wrote, women are the strongest, but above all things, truth bewrayeth away the victory, right? So the third person, he kind of had 2, right? And his sentence, he had 2. He had women, and then he's going to say the truth is, right? So he has to now go and break down 2 things, right? One on a carnal level, but overall, it's really this, right? So now those are the 3 or 4, if you want to count it that way. But now, verse 13. Now, when the king was risen up, they took their writings and delivered them unto him, and so he read them. And sending forth, he called all the princes of Persia and Media, and the governors and the captains and the lieutenants and the chief officers, and sat him down in the royal seat of the judgment, and the writings were read before them. This was no small little thing, like no small little competition. They got all of the electors and all of the high people, princes from all these different realms, to all come down and hear this matter, right? Talking about somebody nervous, like, man, you got everyone here. You gotta break this thing down so that everybody believes that you are the wisest within that realm. Verse 15. No, verse 16. And he said, call the young men, and they shall declare their own sentences. So they were called and came in. Verse 17, and he said unto them, declare unto us your mind concerning the writings. Then began the first, who had spoken of the strength of wine. And he said thus, O ye men, how exceeding strong is wine. It causeth all men to err that drink it, right? So he says, when you drink wine, it's going to cause all men to err. Now, does that mean that every time somebody takes a sip of wine, you're just going to start going off? No, but he's really getting to the overconsumption of wine and how that will cause you to err. A person who doesn't have knowledge of limit of themselves will now indulge over much, and it causes them to now make bad decisions, right? Go to the book of Isaiah chapter 28. Go to the book of Isaiah chapter 28. Yeah, exactly. That's the y'all young. He said, yeah, he said, wine is always somewhere followed with strong drink, right? So this is Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 7. It says,
I was supposed to bust it. Okay.
So this is Isaiah 27. It says, but they also have erred to wine and to strong drink are out of the way, right? So like we said, wine usually also is in company with strong drink because both of them, if you overconsume, will cause you to err in your decision making and your rationalizing, right? So most times people believe that wine is not to be consumed. It's grape juice that we drink. But even in the New Testament, we see that wine was also used or cautioned to a certain extent about overindulging. But here, a strong drink, right? Like your vodkas, your whiskeys, your Crown Royales, and so forth and so on. Those that when you drink it, it goes down hard, right? It's very strong when you drink it, right? Where wine could be smooth. Not to say that you don't have no strong drinks that come down smooth, but the real harsh ones, vodkas and things, yeah, goes down burns. That can cause you to err in your decision making or error in the way. It says the priest and the prophet have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up of wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment, right? Because they've overindulged in that which supposed to have been drunk in moderately, right? So in all things, we're supposed to be careful and do certain things in moderation. You got some people who take, like I got a cold, whatever it is I got, and someone will say, yo, go get some cough medicine. Some people OD on cough medicine, right? And the cough medicine, what's in it, makes them become a little bit loosey-goosey, and they like that. So they go and they drink a whole bunch of cough medicine, and they make these things like lean and all these other things and put that in there to get them lucid, right? But when they're lucid, they're error in decision making, right? You can't see clearly, right? Either physically you can't see clearly or spiritually you can't see clearly. Your inhibitions go down to certain things now, you can't make wise decisions. So that's where wine and or strong drink dealt with inappropriately can cause you to err based on what this first individual is trying to bring out here in his sentence. All right. So let's go back to first Edras chapter 3, 28 and 7. Yeah, 28 and 7. You got links?
One is in Proverbs 20 and 1. Proverbs 20, verse 1. It says, wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. This is Proverbs 23, 29 to 35, pretty straightforward. Proverbs 23 and 29. And it reads, who have woe, who have sorrow, who have contention, who have battle, who have wounds without cause, who have redness of eyes. They that tarry long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Look not upon the wine of the bread, when it gives its color in when it moves itself up. That's why I look at it, I'm happy, I drink.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good, just sipping it. It says that at the last it biteth of the serpent, and stingeth like adder.
Mm-hmm.
And I shall behold strange women, thy heart shall utter perverse things. Yeah, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or as he that lieth up upon the top of a mast. They have stricken me, shalt thou say, and I was not sick. They have beaten me, and I felt it not. When shall I wait? I will seek it yet again. So it's like you didn't learn your lesson of waking up. Like, where am I at? What happened? They made that movie, right? Hangover, part 2.
Mm-hmm.
It was popular. Everybody watching the movie, like, talk every day. I woke up in a crazy situation. Like, I see drugs, waste, trash. I don't know what happened. It's like, you happy about that? All right.
So that was Proverbs chapter 23, verses, you started at 29? Yeah, 29 down to 35. Yeah, that I think it's 31st verse says, look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth its color, right? You like, but you mean look at the wine when it's red. It's not talking like literally looking at it. Sometimes like there's a scripture I think in the Apocrypha that says not to gaze at a maid, right? That you're going to be caught up in her, her wiles and stuff. So it's the same thing with, like you said, with that drink. You saw stuff and you kind of looking at this like, yeah, and you going after another, right? Double me up, right? Because now you fixated on this drink. You're not fixated on you being cognizant and having your peripherals. You just keep going and keep going, right? And I always say everybody has different breaking points, right? A young might be able to hold down, 4 or 5 cups of Yayun, whereas Kahanabiya might be able to hold down 1.5, right? Based on experience, you'll know and say, listen, I'm getting to that point. My speech is getting a little slurred, or somebody's checking me like, yo, I think you don't had enough. Like your words are slurring, or you're starting to look a little dazed and you're stumbling a bit, right? That's not where you want to be. So based on experience, you start now cautioning yourself and saying, listen, I know my limit, right? I can have this cup, this amount of drinks, and that's it. Same thing with strong drink, right? You ain't trying to get 7 tequila shots, right? You don't want to get, so many of these fire bombs and whatever the hell these things is called, and then you on somebody's shoulder walking out the spot, right? That's not becoming of what the Most High, as a representative of the Most High, he doesn't want us to be looked like that, right? He don't want others to look at us that way. Subsequently, how could you now control your own spirit? You can't, right? People could now take advantage of you, start stealing stuff from you, getting the upper hand and making you divulge certain things and all kind of stuff, because you are now you're not really cognizant of what's going on. So that's where the wine can cause you to err. Now that's just one aspect about wine, right? So let's go back to First Edras chapter 3. I think it was what we just, I think I seen that too, because that was just about a couple minutes ago. So back in First Edras chapter 3 and 19 now, it says, it maketh the mind of the king and of the fatherless child to be all one, of the bondman, of the free man, of the poor man, and of the rich, right? So it doesn't matter what class you are, right? Everyone can get to a certain point of mood where if you're a poor man and you're a king, You going through things, he going through things. You got money, he ain't got money. But once y'all now having a good time at the wine or at that strong drink, it can make you become one. I've seen it happen many times, right? Where people don't know each other. This guy got millions upon millions, and this guy just, making it do, just barely making 30,000. Don't matter. They at that bar or they at that spot together, that barbecue, and they sitting down having a good drink, talking about certain things. Man, everything is nice. Everything, you start reminiscing on certain things. Remember when they did this? Oh man, that was a good time. And you start dapping up, and that's where the goodness of what wine does. It brings a good jollity to brotherhood or sisterhood, right? If it's done in proper measure and manner. But reading again, it says, "It maketh the mind of the king and of the fatherless child to be all one, of the bondman and the free man, of the poor man and of the rich," right? So it don't see class. "It turneth also every thought into jollity and mirth, so that a man remembereth neither sorrow nor debt," right? Now, the funny thing about this verse is, as true as it is, right, it becomes your escape all the time, right? Because you're going through some form of sorrow or some form of debt and you don't deal with it, you're running to go drink wine or strong drink consistently, right? Because you're trying to run away from the sorrow. Now, for the moment, a time, like whether somebody died or you just had a hardship, right? Car broke down, or now I got to go buy another car. I ain't got no money. I was just going, how am I going to get to work? Right? And you sitting there contemplating, so, you know what? Man, you go grab a thing. You're sitting there and you go toss one back, and you're sitting there. Now, for the moment, those worries, those cares, they subside, right? It go away for a minute, right? And then you say, man, I want to have another. And then you have another. Okay, now it's going away for 2 minutes or 2 hours. But at the end of it all, you still got to deal with that, right? You still got to confront that debt or that sorrow and move on, or make wise decisions so that you can overcome it, right? But that is a true thing, that for the moment of time to now ease the pain mentally, you can go drink some wine or, a little mixed drink, something here and there, and it'll bring a little warmth to your heart, right? Take the edge off. Yeah, exactly. Verse 21, "And it maketh every heart rich, so that a man remembereth neither king nor governor, and it maketh to speak all things by talents," right? So now once you on the sauce or drinking that wine or having that strong drink, now whatever talent or gift that you got, now you ready to bring it out, right? Let me tell you, you remember when I was over here? Let me bring out something that I had happen to me a little while ago. Now you're going to bring out that experience. And this brother going to bring out hers. This sister going to do hers, because they have the talent to do certain things. And they may be introverts. They not be the person that want to always speak or do certain things. But once they got that wine in them, the inhibition go down, and man, they out there. They the best dancer. They the best this. They go out there and they do what it is they do. Right? Wine will have that effect on you, or strong drink also will have that effect on you, right? It says, you said something? Oh, it says in 22, "And when they are in their cups, they forget their love both to friends and brethren, and a little after draw out swords." So this is the other side, right? So now that wine, having so many, after a while, you forget that that's your brother, man. He's been there through thick and thin. Now, the smallest thing now changes or alters your mind, where you're now showing some form of hatred to this man, right? You're showing some form of strife to this man. And then all of a sudden, you start getting to come to blows. Then you start getting to pulling guns and doing all kind of things, right? Over this wine. Go to Ecclesiasticus, chapter 31. Ecclesiasticus chapter 31 is going to express some of the same things. Ecclesiasticus chapter 31 and verse 27. Gabar, if you could read that.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 31 and verse 27. "Wine is as good as life to a man, if it be it was made to make men glad.
Right. So if you drink wine moderately, man, that's good for you. That's like having a good life every now and again. Come home or middle of the day and you're cooking or whatever the case may be, and you just have a nice little glass of wine or nice glass of strong drink and you sipping and drinking it moderately, man, that's good. It was made to make you feel those goodness or those feelings while these things is going on. Read.
Wine measurably drunk and in season bringeth gladness of the heart and cheerfulness of the mind.
Right. So wine measurably drunk. So you have to measure. You ain't pouring a liter of wine in a glass. I'm about to drink this liter. No, it has to be measurably consumed. And then it says if it and it has to be in season, right? In season meaning there's a time and a place. You're not about to start your workday with a glass of wine, right? That's not the season. It's not the time, not the place. After all the work has been done, or after this, then you can go do that. Measure at the right point in time. Then it's going to be beneficial for that person. Read on.
But wine drunken with excess maketh bitterness of the mind, with brawling and quarreling.
Right. So if you go overboard, then that's going to bring bitterness of the mind, because now contentions and strife is going to come in. As it says, brawling and quarreling, arguing, right? Now you're going to start bringing up all kind of things and y'all making all kind of noise in the streets, in the bars, at somebody's house, yelling, and now you fighting and grabbing knobs. That's what happens at the wine or strong drink, because people don't consume it in measure, right? At the right point in time with wisdom, right? You got to have wisdom be your guide in all of this. Let the scriptures guide you so that you don't go overboard, because the warning is here. If you gravitate on this when you're drinking it, then you're always going to be considering the consequences if I go overboard. You know what? I feel a little tipsy. Let me remove myself. Let me stop. Let me remove myself. Go home before something happens. Before I overindulge. I know myself. And right now I'm going a little bit overboard. Let me stop. All right, it's time for me to go home. It's time for me to remove myself. I'm gonna go sit at that table over there. I ain't sitting with y'all, because y'all don't know how to stop. I'm gonna go over there. Y'all gonna have shots just keep coming. I mean, I'm going to separate or I'm out, right? Because this is what's going to happen. You're going to forget your friends, right? You know, I just seen not even friends, family kill each other at the wine or the strong drink over nonsense. See it on the news, and they're like, yeah, such and such killed them, you know, watching the Super Bowl because they was on different teams, and it was like they didn't just kill each other. He didn't kill him because his team beat this other team. I'm pretty sure there was some influence involved. Pretty sure he had about 4 or 5 things of beer, and he had some other consumable things, alcohol, that affected his mind and caused him to go and think that pulling a knife or a gun in the argument was the right thing to do, right? That's what the Most High in the Bible is showing you, that this will lead to that when you go above and beyond. Verse 30.
Drunkenness increases the rage of a fool till he offends. It diminishes strength and maketh weak.
Right. It increases the rage of a fool. So a person who's a fool already, then he gets drunk. Oh man, that's like sometimes when we go to camp and you got men who come up and they drunk. I don't even want to talk to them, because once you drunk and you over, we'll try to give you words. We can go sober up, come back. Here's the address. Come back after you sobered up, and we can talk. But if you really drunk, I don't want to deal with you, because it's hard to reason with somebody like that. The best thing that we can have you do is just go home, drink some water, take a nap or whatever, and sleep it off. Because going back and forth, it's going to now make that fool even more overboard with that alcohol. Read on.
31.
Mm-hmm.
Rebuke not thy neighbor at the wine.
Mm-hmm.
Despise him not in his mirth.
Mm-hmm.
Give him no despiteful words, and press not upon him with urging him to drink.
Right. So it's different aspects, right? So you don't want to, start wanting to reason or deal with somebody when they're drunk. You don't want to start checking them and showing them their faults and things because they're not really going to receive it that way, right? So you don't want to rebuke him and you don't want to urge him on to do more drinking. That's wicked, right? You see the guy's drunk out of his mind and you still buying him shots and you bringing him drinks. No, he's reached his limit. Certain bars now have been held accountable that they'll just say you got a 2-drink minimum because now if he goes and does something, now the city or the state has now made the bars or the establishment liable for what happens to that individual because you knew better. You served him the drink and he was already drunk and you kept giving it to him, right? So now they hold them accountable. So they'll say, listen, this is your last drink. A last drink, it's only 2. You got a 2-drink minimum here. We don't, it may not be for you, but we don't want no problems, right? So that's just because of an establishment. But for brotherhood, you would just say, you know what? You had enough, brother. You've had enough, sister, which we've had to do sometimes. You've had enough. That's your 4th one. And you was talking, and now you sitting there quiet. I don't know what's going on. You all right? Yeah, I'm all right. All right, you start sliding down a little bit. I'm all right. Yeah, you all right, but that's it, right? No more for you. We're just gonna give you some water, and somebody gonna take you home, or you got to get home because this is not gonna be conducive for you, right? But these are the aspects of wine, and it's not to say that wine is wicked, but it's just taken out of context of what or how an individual should not consume it. Go to Titus. Because in the New Testament, people believe, like you go to church, you're not supposed to drink wine. An individual drinking wine? What the heck is this? Right? And you're a man of God. You're a man, and you got the Bible and you're drinking wine. They just don't understand the Most High in the Scriptures. So go to the book of Titus. I think it's the looking for. Where is it for the bishops? Is it the 2nd chapter? No, 1st chapter. So Titus chapter 1. And verse 7. So Titus chapter 1 and verse 7, it says, for a bishop must be blameless. Name can't be stained around the city. Like he's all into all nonsense, right? All kind of accusation things going on. He's in the midst. No, he has to be blameless as the steward of God, not self-willed, not soon angry, not given to wine, nor striker, not given to filthy lucre, right? So this time, an individual is not given in to wine. What does that mean, not given to wine? Is a bishop not supposed to consume no wine? No. You're not supposed to be given into wine. Like you cannot contain yourself, right? You don't know how to stop, right? So these bishops or aged men know how to bridle themselves. Same thing with the women. Go to the 2nd chapter. So in Titus chapter 2 and verse 3, it says the aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becoming holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things. So not given to much wine or given into wine is the same thing, meaning that you don't know your limits. You're drinking 4 glasses of wine or 5 glasses of vodka and cranberry, and you're now off the rocker, right? You got to know how to do it measurably. You got to know when to do it and when not to do it. That's the key that even in the New Testament has been put out there for those who drink wine. When Yahushua did the first miracle, turning water to wine, this was supposed to be applied, right? Know how to bridle yourself. Know your limit so that you don't overconsume, right? 1 or 2, it's good, right? Depending on, who you are. I know some people, I used to work with Moab. Moab said, yeah, we're not good with drinking. So when they had certain functions, he said, yeah, I don't drink. Because if I have one, it's a wrap. I have 1 drink, 1 beer, I'm totally drunk. So he said, I don't drink, right? So that was his way of knowing himself. So he said, listen, I don't drink. Some people's like, well, maybe you just have a half a glass. Or they have it where you can mix beer and like Sprite, like diluted. And he was like, okay, maybe I'll try that. Right? Because if I drink one whole 16-ounce glass of beer or nah, I'm done. I can't control. Right? So they were making the kind of decision, listen, I don't want to drink it all if I'm gonna have to bear that burden of what comes after. So let's go back to first Edras 3.
On the page right here, the one that just reading in Ecclesiastes, it sounded like the person though was saying that if you don't drink wine, then you're not be happy. Did you understand what I'm saying?
Which one? Verse 27.
31 and 27. Yeah.
Wine is as good as a life to a man if it be drunk moderately. What life is then to a man without wine, for it was made to make man glad.
So that means if you don't drink wine, you're going to be a mean, angry person?
No, because just like with Paul, remember when you read in the book of Corinthians with Paul, and Paul was giving his perspective on marriage, and he said, I'd rather you not marry, right? Because there's a lot of work to be done. If you could contend, I'd rather you not marry. That's what he said. But does it mean that every man is supposed to go out there and not marry to go out there and do the work? No. Paul was able to do that. Not have a wife, not worry about having kids and things of that nature. But there are some individuals that's out there that's like Paul, who said, listen, I don't have desires to want to have a family. I'm all about the work. I'm all consumed and going out there teaching and raising up these churches. Somebody else can say, you know what? I want to do that too. But then sit around like, nah, man. I want a woman. I want a wife, right? And he has to go do a wife and do the truth. So now when it comes to wine, there's certain individuals who know how to moderately deal with wine, right? Like I could say there, every now and again, I don't drink wine every week or every month, right? Every now and again, I'll have some wine, right? Yeah, every now. Listen, I can go a whole week or two with no wine, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Others just gonna offer it up, but yeah, without wine or strong drink. But when I do have it and I drink it, depending on the time that I'm doing it, oh, it's a beautiful thing. I usually drink wine when I'm cooking. If I'm cooking something, that's what I'm going to get. I'm going to get, most times, actually, it's a strong drink. And I have me a strong drink, and I'm cooking, and I'm in a good mood. And then I'll start cooking 2 and 3 different things, right? And then after it's done, then I sit down and that's it. And it's done. I can go several days, a week or 2 or 3, without needing to touch it again, right? So I'm not given to the wine that I need to always come back every day or 2, like it's calling me. Hey, you forgot about me? Come get another glass. Give me another glass in order to keep myself happy. Oh, right? That's what David said, the scriptures, the law was his delight, right? Some people made that knowledge, that wisdom become the joy. And that became, and wine or other things, not even just drinking, becomes an additive to it. It heightens it. But yeah, it was the perspective that Sirach was given, or the son of Sirach, the son of Sirach was given as it pertains to wine in itself. Go ahead, Nabiyah.
You go with that Ecclesiastes 37, verse 27 and 28.
37, 28.
27 and 28. Ecclesiastes 37, verse 27 reads, my son, prove thy soul in thy life, see what is evil for it, and give not that unto 28. For all things are not profitable for all men, neither have every soul pleasure.
God. Prove what's good for you. It's okay. Somebody can go without a whole tree. It's right. Take a Nazarite vow. Exactly. All right, let's go back. First Edras chapter 3. We have verse 23 now. But when they are from the wine, they remember not what they have done. Right. So after you done had all the drinking and everything else, the next morning, you forgot the whole night. And today's time, that was a good night. I don't remember what I did. Damn, we had a good time, didn't we? Right? Then you start finding out later on what nonsense you did. You be like, nah, I didn't do that. Yeah, you did. In today's realm, now they got the cell phones to capture everything. Right? Was that Hangover movie? That's how it was all predicated on. Right? They went and did all kind of stuff and didn't remember nothing, or the person didn't remember nothing the next day. Right? That's what it says. When you are removed from the wine, when you are not drinking wine anymore, you forget what you had done while you were drinking that wine. Right? Called a hangover. You blacked out. Right? Now, headache. Yeah, you got a face tat. You got a scar. You got a bump here, and you don't know how you got it, but you got it. Right? Great night. Right? I got to do that next week. That's the wisdom of this world thinking. Right? Verse 24, it says, "O ye men, is not wine the strongest, that enforceth to do thus?" And when he had so spoken, he held his peace. Right. So this was the first man coming up. Said, what else is like there that causes this type of influences? It can make you happy, can make you sad, right? Make you forget, right? Make you so strong, make you think that you're bigger than what you are, right? Good. You can go out there and fight 100 men. Don't matter. Yeah, invincible, no pain. I don't feel nothing. I had that happen to me when I was in college. I remember one time we drank so much, and same thing happened. I challenged one of my buddies, and we were out in the middle of the doggone court, no shirt on, going hard to the body for like a good 15 minutes, just punching each, boom, boom, boom. And everybody else, this is on campus, they seeing us thinking that we actually fighting, like in rage with one another. And it was weird because at some point he hit harder. I'm trying to hit him harder. And we going harder and harder and harder. They called the cops on us. The cops had to come, and then within like a snap of a judgment, we over there hugging it out. No, this is my brother, man. We're not fighting, this my brother. All just belligerently drunk, right? And then the next day, people talking about it, and you like, nah, I ain't like, yeah, you had to see the faces on people that was looking at you. You had to hear what they were saying. You're like, word, yeah, that was crazy yesterday, man. You need to check yourself, T. Right, as you tell me, and you learn from your experiences sometimes, or you learn from others' experiences. Like if I seen, like when you grew up in an environment, you see people on drugs, on heroin or whatever, and you see them now, it's like, all right, I see what they're going through. I don't want that for me. I'm afraid I can avoid that situation or circumstance so that doesn't become my experience. If you're a smart individual, wise individual, that you don't have to put your hand in the fire to learn, and you can just observe from afar or get counsel, then that's a beautiful thing. You're not stubborn to that effect. Right? All right. So the first one, wine has come to an end. He's going to go sit down, and then in a few weeks, we'll have the next wise man stand up and give his take on, was it the king being the strongest?
I kind of see it sitting in my mind's eye too.
Right. I did that. Right. People clapping, like, yeah, that was good, right? Yeah, exactly. Doing all that, bowing, right? Getting the pats on the back. Like, man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to beat that. It's gonna be tough. No, but they can't gonna beat you, right? Pump your head up. And then the next person sitting there like, wait, I got this. Just wait till I get up there, right? And because it's a challenge, right? Everybody wants to be that guy. So you got to hype yourself up, and you got to hype those around you to meet that call. All right. So that concludes First Edras, the second and third chapters for today's Sabbath service lesson. Hopefully everybody was able to get the precepts Brother Craig. I see you said repeat. Hopefully, I was correct in repeating what I believe was the last one. That one in Proverbs. If not, can you just mention in the chat, and we'll try to get you the precepts in succession for what we went over. Next week, Sabbath service will be. This is the one. This is the one. Next week, April 8th, 2 Samuel chapter 13 and 14. Again, next week's Sabbath service is 2 Samuel chapter 13 and 14 for the lesson. Again, Monday night, opening Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread. Begin to start making your preparations this weekend of marking and getting certain things needed to be out of your houses, whether you have to eat them or you have to throw away or store it somewhere else or get it out of your house. But make sure you start marking to get that out before the first day comes in. All right. Any questions that anybody may have related to the Passover menu, right? Kahan Nabiyah has emailed and sent out text message related to the Passover menu that has entailed on it do's and don'ts, foods that you can eat, foods that you cannot eat, right? As well as the list of leavening agents known today outside of just the generic brand names. If you need assistance with, what it is that you might need as a guide to cook or prepare, this is what the body of the congregation is for. We got a good chat group going on. Leverage that. Post questions in there if you need. Post as others do. Okay, exactly. Nutrition things. If you see something, you're going through your research, you see something that others will also be able to benefit from, make sure you either screenshot it or post it into the chat. Brother Ayan has been very diligent and good in posting up a lot of historical things and certain things that he has been sharing with the body on the chat group. Others can do the same thing, right? His forte is bringing out a lot of that good history and signs and things from the past, but there's a lot that also is still out there, right? Health-wise or something pertaining to certain breakdowns or what have you. There's a lot of different chambers to this truth that others can also put their brick in and share and help out the body. Exhort one another, right? Sometimes we need good exhortation that allows us to consider, being persistent and doing this walk so that you don't get tired or you get lazy or you lose esteem in doing this walk. So all of those aspects is good to use to big us up and keep us going. So with that, we're going to close out today's Sabbath service lesson. I say, Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath. All praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh Shah. Grateful for food, shelter, raiment, clothing, and most importantly, this truth, right? Everything else doesn't matter, right? Pray for health for those of us who are still going through sicknesses, praying for health. Happy to hear that Sister Hanukkah is doing much better. She's kind of gotten over the hump. She's exercising, she's doing certain things. So all praise to the Most High Yahweh Shah for that. Same thing for any others. There's certain things that we've been trying. I know she's trying. I tried. I've given it to somebody else. So if there's anybody who's going through certain things, I could try to recommend certain things that might help you within your journey of what you're trying to overcome. It's not me. It's the Most High, and He's using certain things to allow us to kind of better ourselves, both physically and spiritually. So, again, give all praise to the Most High and Yahweh Shah for each and every one of us individually that can help the body out as best we can. So, again, stay tuned for the closing prayers. And Shah Shabbat, Most High's will. We're here to see each other doing the Passover service Monday night. Shalom.
Shalom.
Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shah, Yasharan, Elanawa, Pari Hagapa, Zawada Aman, La Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, Ath, Yasha Allah. Again, English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it, to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. Imadu, I put you on your rostrum, stand and face Jerusalem. Close in prayer. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalat, Maika Allah, Wahala Hayam, Tazwadakim, La, Shemaiah, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakaziyak, Bunya, Yasha Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabiam Kakama, Rabiam Ta'aith, Rabiam Bayana, Rabiam Sabalanwa, Rabiam Amawan, Rabiam Aqua, Rabiam Ahabiam, Rabiam Hakana, Rakhanaya, Wasalat, Kal, Katayemnawa, Lahaakim, Wayasha Allah, Tamyad, Waiwalam, Basham, Yahawashai, Thawada, Aman. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us now, right now. Send Michael and their righteous powers or angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection. And forgive all our sins from the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Four corners prayer. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha Allah, Wabat Yasaparium, Shema, Yasharella, Yahweh, Allah, Yahweh, all right, English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us and Israel in the house of books for the schools. And Deuteronomy 6:4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. With that, again, we'll say Shah Shabbat, happy Sabbath. Enjoy the remaining of the Sabbath day. Shalom.